It is 7 p.m. and I want to thank everybody for coming tonight. Just because Jared is still eating and I don't want him to have to rush, and it looks like we're going to have plenty of time because we don't have our other candidate, which was kind of expected. Why don't we go around the room and just tell us your name. You have something, Brian?
Well, if the doors up front aren't lying, it says they're closing at 8 instead of 9, so...
Well, no, that's to come in.
Oh, okay.
But this meeting is going to go till 8:30. Or we should adjourn before 8:30 is the deal, the arrangement with the use of this meeting room. Okay. But no, if you came in fresh and you're ready to eat a big meal, you have to be in by 8. But you're already in. You're past that threshold, so that doesn't apply. So without taking more than about a minute, if we could start here with Kantasha and just tell us your name. And I'll introduce Kantasha, the one who signed you in. Kantasha and James are husband and wife here. They help me out a lot, and currently they are living at my house up on Glendale. And very good help, wonderful people. And we have 2 new members tonight, our 2 newest members of the Kansas Republican Assembly. And I'll have you guys take it from there. Tell us a little bit about yourselves.
My name is Mern Augustus Joseph Miller. I worked for Boeing for 25 years and then got laid off from Spirit at 7 years. So I got a total of 32 years working in engineering. And this is my wife, Sue, who is retired. She worked for Long McCurdy, and we've just, and she worked at Boeing as well. And we're just wanting to support the best life that can be presented and given to us here in the United States of America.
Right on.
Are you running for office?
James Hodges.
I invited him.
Oh, James invited him. Okay, well that makes you popular. Let's talk about your wife a little bit more. What? She's beautiful. What? Are you guys married now, or what's going on?
Yeah, we're married, and she's from the Philippines. We're going to retire back.
You're going to retire in the Philippines.
We're trying to take it over.
So you'll have to start a Philippines Republican Assembly when you get there, right? Okay, Deborah.
Deborah Evans. Been a Republican since I moved to Kansas. Found the right way. And I actually was even part of the county machine for a while.
Precinct committee lady. You were a precinct committee woman.
And I was treasurer for a while.
That's true. That's right. When I was chairman. Or in that era, anyway.
I haven't been in a while, and I apologize.
Oh, that's good. All right. Jennifer.
I'm a great-grandmother now.
Oh, great-grandmother.
Great-grandmother.
My goodness, I knew you were a grandmother. Jennifer.
I'm Jennifer McCoy, and I just do some pro-life work, and that's about it.
That's not about it. We'll let her get back to that. Brian?
Hi, I'm Cindy.
You're Cindy. Cindy Koss. How are you, Cindy? Thank you for
I'm
coming.
good. I'm a stay-at-home mom. I love it. And our kids are 10 and 11, and wish they could be here because they like coming to meetings.
Glad to have you. This is not your first meeting, but we're honored to have you back.
I like coming back.
Brian, are you ready to tell us who you are?
Yes, I do video, I put it on the website.
Okay, so he did a really good job on the last one. If you hadn't clicked on that link, that's on your agenda. I think you'll certainly enjoy it. Okay, Michelle.
I'm Michelle Lestano. I used to be a raging feminist and an Obama supporter, but I didn't vote for him, thanks be to God. And then I switched over to the Republican side with the help of some friends, and now I'm very happy to be a Republican.
We are honored to have you, and I hope you join the group. We'll put you to work. Very good. Let's go to Gene Pearson next at the front table here. Gene?
That would be me. I'm Gene Pearson, Front Ag. Originally from out the Maze, moved into Wichita. Lived and worked here for number of years. Grew up construction, swimming pool business. Was a firefighter for the city of Wichita for 25 years and retired from that 7 years. Self-employed, small demolition contractor. This is my wife, Amy.
We're happy to have you here, Gene and Amy. Thank you very much. Alan?
I'm Alan Weldon. I'm born and raised in Wichita. I retired from Wichita Public Schools. I've been retired now for 8 years.
Glad to have you, Alan. All right, so let's go around, starting with James, we'll go around and end up over here, Jason.
Yeah, James Kilpatrick, retired from the city after 36 years. That's all I do.
Okay, very good.
Pete Hannes.
Pete, can you tell us a little bit about yourself? Are you from, born and raised here or where?
Oh, no, I grew up in New York State.
From New York. Okay. Well, we won't hold that against you.
New York?
I am a University of Alabama grad. Garrett Bryan was the coach when I was in college.
Wow. Well, we're happy to have you. Thank you for coming to our meeting tonight. And Bill O'Reilly has his better half here. That's nice. Bill Riley. I said O'Reilly. I don't know why that rolls off my tongue. Yeah. Okay.
Kansas House Rep, 80th District, so which is basically the south part of Coweta County, south part of Sumner County. My wife Diana.
Your beautiful wife, Diana. I see. Yeah, beautiful. And we have Jason next. What's up, Jason?
Hi, I'm an Army veteran, Wichita State graduate, and just an active Republican advocate.
And Notary Republic.
I am a notary Republican.
Jason Carmichael, right here. Okay, Benny the Black Man.
I know Mark for like 20 years. I think Jared's gonna do excellent, especially with that voice the guy gave me. I worked with the city, with people that lose loved ones. I worked on so much stuff. I love what I do, volunteer because I lost my sister. And I've been with the Catholic Sisters working on like 25 years. I've seen a lot, Tiny Soup Kitchen, and the name goes on and on.
Oh my gosh.
And Mark's wonderful, but Jared, I think that you're gonna do good. Not because I know you from Kip, rock on.
All right, very good. Go ahead, Jason Dean.
Jason Dean, and native from here, just wrapping up with the census. Been the census for 4 years, and also a landlord.
Also what?
A landlord.
At a young age.
Well, I started off as a slumlord, but then.
Oh, there you go. Okay, yes, there you go.
Good for you, Jason. I'm proud Jason is a volunteer. Well, in fact, let me just see a show of hands. How many of you volunteer at the abortion facilities and help me out here? Look at this. We got, yeah, let's give them a hand. Look at this, all the hands up. There we go. Jason, did you have your hand up? I hope so.
I need to get back out.
I really appreciate it. So we have one more to introduce, but I'm going to introduce Jared, and we'll do that after we officially bring this meeting to order. So here we go. We're going to start with an opening prayer. And, you know, I thought I had everything planned here really well, and I didn't ask anybody to start with a prayer. But I bet James can do it for us. Can you do an impromptu prayer and open this meeting?
Father, we want to thank you, praise you, give you the glory and the honor. So much for this day, for this country. We ask you to be with it, with our leaders, Lord, to bring us back to you. We just ask you to do that. Protect our people that's overseas and that conflict over there that's costing lives. So we just ask you to be with our military forces. Be with everybody in these elections that are coming up so that we can pick people best for you. We want to thank you for the food that you bless us with in this meeting. We thank you for it in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Benny, can you hand one of these out? Or I think there's enough for one for everybody that wants to help us sing a patriotic song. Hand one to everybody real quick.
Did you get one, Jared?
I don't.
The next part of this is a flag salute, and we have the flag salute led by the oldest veteran present. And I'm just guessing here, but I think it might be Alan Weldon. He's won it before. So let me see a show of hands of the veterans. Look at this, good showing of veterans tonight. Look at that. Whoa, wow. A very good showing of veterans. Excellent. Let's give the veterans a hand. Let's do that. All right, so So let me see a show of hands of veterans who are older than 65. Oh, there's 3 of us. How about older than 70? Oh my gosh, huh? No, that's all I have of those. Somebody will have to share. In fact, I need to have one of them. Well, Jared and I will share one. That'll work. So over 70 then. Over 70 we had 2. Over 75. Alan, I do win it again, Alan. Alan, would you rise and lead us in a flag salute? We got a flag salute right here. We're not saluting you, Jared. We're saluting you.
Thanks, I pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Alan, can you tell us when you served?
I was
You can be seated again.
I was in the Air Force. I was a staff sergeant in supply, and that was in the Vietnam War days. The closest I came was actually being in Okinawa.
Okay, very good. Thank you for your service, Alan. Alan's a wonderful person, and he's actually a walking encyclopedia of political history in Kansas, if you ever want to know details that nobody else knows. All right, I had a guitarist that was going to come tonight, and she had something came up and is not able to be here, so I'm going to either sing a solo, and I hate doing solos, but we have a side sheet here that says "My Country 'Tis of Thee" on it, and I want you to sing as loud as you can, and if it's black, especially where the black lettering is, you sing as loud as you can, and the blue is for the guys to sing, and the red is for the girls to sing, okay? So we'll start here. My country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Long may our land be bright with freedom's holy light. Protect us by thy might, great God our King. Well, that sounded great. It sounded way better than I thought it would. All right. Thanks for helping me out on that. Okay, so moving right along, we are already on item D, and that is the recognition of office holders. We have Bill Riley here. We're going to be talking a lot more about him a little later. We have a city council member incumbent right here. Let me have a show of hands for precinct committee men and women and other holders of office of anything. Here we go, 1, 2, 3. Okay, so we have to have a little bit more of an explanation here. Miss Riley, what is your position? Precinct committee person. Okay, very good. And Pete as well? Very good, very good. Thank you, everybody, for serving there.
What's your precinct number?
211.
211, very good, very good. Okay, the minutes are done by by Brian Koss in the back. You see he's got his video camera. He's doing a super job on this. It was a decision we made. Debbie Baker didn't have time to write them, and I don't care how good you write your minutes, it's not as good as the video coverage of them. You got every minute, you got the inflection in the voice, you got everything. And so I love having these video minutes. Not very much traffic on them yet, but I think when people find out they're there will be more traffic. On the treasurer's report, if you'll recall, the last meeting we had was back in the last treasurer's report we had was back in 2019. The last meeting we had was back in 2020 in January, just before the COVID shutdown. And the reason I remember that is I was in the Ukraine and nearly got locked out of the United States coming back. But anyway, we weren't able to have the February meeting. We already had that planned and everything. And at the January meeting, we had a hiccup on the treasurer's report, my not getting it done. I said, I'll do it in February. Well, February didn't happen. And so this goes all the way back, this treasurer's report. You'll see on the flip side of your agenda, we have a treasurer's report. Everything that's in yellow are good solid numbers, which is the top and the bottom. But all of the stuff in the middle, most of that is constant contact, monthly bills. That's 22 months of stuff here. And it's so much, it's going to take me a day of accounting to get this caught up. I will fill in this and flesh it out, leaving the starting date as of September 26, 2019, and then I'll bring that all the way through the September meeting next time. Promise you I'm halfway there, and so I'll get that done before the next meeting. So I'm not going to ask for an approval of the treasurer's report. We'll slide that, with your permission, to the next one. So that being done, we are on item number G, and that would be for me to introduce our speaker. Jared Cerullo was born and is a bred and born Wichitan. Not only that, but a South Wichitan. Since the day his mother brought him home from Wesley Medical Center, Jared has lived, worked, and played in Wichita. Jared grew up in the area of 55th Street South and Broadway and attended Hayesville schools from kindergarten until he graduated from Campus High School in 1992. Jared attended Wichita State University for a short stint before going to work at KFDI Radio in 1993. He worked in the news department at KFDI for 14 years, reporting the news daily, chasing storms, reporting on Wichita traffic conditions, and anchoring newscasts. If you grew up listening to KFDI when the weather turned bad, you likely heard Jared anchoring or reporting on the severe weather conditions. After starting as a weekend overnight reporter while he was still a teenager, Jared worked his way up to eventually become the assignment manager at KFDI. In 2007, Jared accepted an offer to jump into the television market and went to work at Cake TV, the ABC affiliate here in Wichita. Jared started on the assignment desk and worked his way up to reporting for the evening newscasts and anchoring on weekends. In 2013, Jared became self-employed and currently works as a freelancer for radio news stations all over the country, working right from his home in South Wichita. Because of Jared's more than 2 decades of experience as a broadcast journalist, a number of people encouraged him to run for public office. His job for many years has been to ask lots of questions on matters in order to gain as much knowledge and expertise as possible within a very short amount of time. In March of 2021, Jared was chosen by a majority of city council members to fill an unexpired term that is scheduled to end in January of 2022. Please welcome Councilman Jared Cerullo. Thank you, Jared. Okay,
All right,
go ahead
that's
and take it from here.
My opening statement, I
Yes,
suppose,
ready for your
huh?
opening statement. That's where we are.
Well, as he mentioned, I am a lifelong Wichita resident. I grew up near 55th Street South and Broadway, and when I bought my house, I bought my first house near 63rd Street South and Hydraulic, and I've been a South Sider for life. And Lord willing, I'll be a South Sider until the day I die. I love South Wichita, but unfortunately, I think South Wichita has been forgotten for a long time at City Hall, and I have decided to do this because I want to make a big change. I believe I am the right person to stand up and fight for what the South Side deserves. When it comes, we have a lot of problems. I'll admit, District 3 is basically east of Broadway and everything south of Kellogg. So pretty much the southeast quadrant of the city of Wichita, all the way down to the north side of Derby and Hayesville. We have a lot of problems in District 3. The South Broadway corridor is troubled. We have a lot of seedy motels in that area. We have prostitution that is running rampant on South Broadway, and it has for many years, let's face it. I don't know what the solution is, but I know I want to bring people to the table, whether it be housing, whether it be police experts, and figure out what we need to do to help eradicate the prostitution problem on South Broadway. We have a lot of housing and blight concerns also. The Hilltop and Plainview neighborhoods have a lot of problems. They need some help. And we have a great opportunity to use some of this pandemic relief money in order to do neighborhood cleanups and things like that. What ultimately I believe is the root of the problem, many of the problems that District 3 has, are drugs and alcohol. And we have a terrible methamphetamine problem. We have a terrible opioid problem. Wichita isn't the only city that has this problem. But we need to figure out how to get people out of that never-ending cycle, because it's not good. That drug, the methamphetamine and the opioids, it just keeps people in that cycle where they don't care about anything else but their next fix. And that ultimately leads to them not caring about their homes and not caring about their families and not caring about anything unless they know where they're going to get their next fix. So the issue that the city of Wichita faces is that we don't have a health department. My opponent has taken on a cause, which is a noble cause, of expanding programs for mental health and substance abuse issues. The problem with the city of Wichita is we don't have a health department. We don't have health experts that work for the city of Wichita. The Sedgwick County does. Sedgwick County has a health department. Sedgwick County has the ComCare division that deals with those types of things. So in terms of helping to solve mental health and substance abuse problems from a city standpoint, we have to figure out how to work with the county, and I'm totally willing to work with the county. One of the big programs that's been rather a success, if we can find more funding for it, isn't that everything needs more funding, right? You know, and everything, it's always you want to fund one program to figure out how you're going to cut from the other, and it's a never-ending cycle, unfortunately. But the ICT-1 program is a program that was started here in Sedgwick County about 2 years ago, and it embeds social workers with a Wichita police officer. Many times people who are having a mental health crisis or they need an intervention of some sort, they call 911. That's the first thing when you are having an emergency crisis, is you call 911. But many times people who are suffering from a mental health crisis don't necessarily need a police officer. The police officer is going to handle the problem from a law enforcement perspective, and that may not necessarily be what's needed to solve the problem. What's needed is the health professional, the behavioral health professional that knows how to help them cope with the mental health crisis that they're having. So the ICT-1 unit is only one unit at this point in time. I'd like to see it expanded to 3 units if we can find the funding for it. But it embeds social workers with Wichita police officers and Sedgwick County Sheriff's deputies to actually respond to calls out on the street and help solve some of the, not solve, but deal with some of the mental health problems.
Help the officers.
Yes, help the officers deal with those. But right now we only have 1 unit. They work 8 to 5 on weekdays. They don't even work the weekends. It's severely underfunded. But it's a program that has been shown to work. Instead of taking someone to jail that they may have committed a crime under a mental health intervention or a mental health crisis that they were having, but they may not necessarily need to go to jail, or going to jail is not going to solve the problem. So this has kept a lot of people out of jail and gotten them the help that they need. So I'd like to see that program expanded. We have a great opportunity in District 3 with Clapp Park. I don't know if many people know where Clapp Park is. It's the old golf course, the old Clapp golf course at Harry and Oliver. It's no longer a golf course. About close to 3 years ago now, the City of Wichita Parks Department shut down Clapp Golf Course. And at that point in time began a process of involving the community to come up with a plan for the future of Clapp Park. And over the past 3 years, they've come up with a master plan that involves a massive state-of-the-art playground with zip lines, things like that, an amphitheater, a band shell, a farmer's market bistro where people can grow their own fruits and vegetables and sell them right there. Because we have I'm sure many people have heard the term food deserts. We have a lot of food deserts in southeast Wichita. And what a food desert is basically an area where there is no grocery store within 4 miles. And much of the southeast part of Wichita is considered in a food desert. There's no grocery store within 4 to 5 miles of where a person lives. And there's a large section of that. And when you think about someone who is low income and doesn't have their own car, or disabled, blind, they can't drive, they need easy options to get to the grocery store. So we need to figure out how to attract private grocery stores to southeast Wichita as well. So I think he's signaling that my time is up.
No, I'm not. Not
I
yet.
thought you, okay.
We're doing good because we don't have another opponent here, so you can have a little extra time. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
So yes, that's one of the big problems that I would like to see if we can figure out. Also, the north side got their train bridges about 15, 20 years ago. I'd like to figure out how to involve the federal government, because when you deal with railroads, railroads can be very hard to deal with because they are not governed. They govern themselves, basically. The federal government doesn't even have jurisdiction over the railroads. So when we hear a lot of complaints about the railroads causing, stopped trains causing traffic problems along the Southeast Boulevard corridor, I want to figure out how we can find the federal funding to build bridges over Harry, Lincoln, and Mount Vernon, maybe as far south as MacArthur, for Boeing traffic along Southeast Boulevard, because we've had anybody who knows Southeast Wichita knows that the traffic problems are terrible every day, especially at the morning and the afternoon rush hours when the trains come, and sometimes they stop there for 20 or 30 minutes at a time, and it becomes a huge headache.
Would that include the 47th Street?
Possibly, yeah, possibly. That would be a lot, but I'd like to see what we can do, maybe extending down to at least MacArthur. So the north side got their bridges up toward 13th Street. 1st, 2nd, and 13th Street all now have elevated train bridges, of course you know. I'd like to see the same thing along Southeast Boulevard, just to the west, across Mount Vernon, Harry, and Lincoln. But it's going to take a long time. I realize that it's going to probably be a $100 million project, I would assume, to get those trains elevated. But my goodness, it would cause the headaches to go away in traffic in southeast Wichita. So, yeah. What?
Biden wants to spend all that money on infrastructure.
Yes, I was thinking just a couple of weeks ago when they were talking about that multi-billion dollar, I don't even know how big it was. It was billions of dollars, that traffic infrastructure project. I was cautiously watching that to see if it would pass. So, yeah.
All right, if this is a good stopping point, or to start taking questions.
All right.
When you ask your question, try to not make a long statement. Try to get precisely to the question as soon as possible. And then give me a show of hands, and I will take the first hands showing first. And then we'll ask that, and please ask just one question. And then once we get around, if we have the time, and it looks like because we have only one candidate here tonight, we will have the time for those. And the first hand I'm seeing is Bill Riley back here. And then Alan, you have the next one after that. So go ahead, Bill, ask your question, and speak up so that everybody can hear you.
Okay. Can everybody hear me?
We can.
Okay. So my question, I heard you talking about the prostitution and everything like that. That we have a problem with the human trafficking going on. So is that on your radar at all? I didn't hear anything about that.
Absolutely. It's much of the prostitution problems and the human trafficking problems are intertwined. And Wichita, many people may not realize it, but Wichita is a crossroads and is a major crossroads for human trafficking, because the smugglers bring young women straight up 35 from the Mexican border, and they come straight up into Wichita, and they can go on to Chicago, they can cut off to Denver, or go off to Kansas City and St. Louis. Wichita is right in the middle. And so Wichita has a terrible human trafficking problem that leads to prostitution. They're intertwined, and absolutely some of those prostitution problems and human trafficking problems, we have to work with the police department to figure out how how we can stop that. The Exploited and Missing Children's Unit is understaffed. They're getting 2 positions back, by the way, as part of the 2022 budget. So the police department's overall, I think the police department overall was getting 29 positions back, and 2 of those are in Exploited and Missing Children's Units. So that'll be some help to deal with those types of problems.
Alan?
Can you explain your vote on the non-discrimination ordinance?
Sure. Couldn't wait for that question.
I didn't hear the question.
He asked, the question was, can I explain my vote on the non-discrimination ordinance? Does everybody know what's going on at the city with the non-discrimination ordinance?
No.
Okay. Back in June, the middle of June, the mayor, Brandon Whipple, brought forward a plan, an ordinance. He said he told me he had been working since February to get a non-discrimination ordinance passed in the city of Wichita. This non-discrimination ordinance would deal with age, sex, religion, veteran status, familial history, ancestry, sexual orientation, and gender identity in terms of housing, employment, and public accommodations. That means if you are a landlord, you cannot discriminate against anybody. You cannot kick them out simply because they are black, simply because they are Asian. You can't kick them out simply because they are gay. You can't kick them out simply because they're transgender. Those types of things. That's what this non-discrimination ordinance deals with. This non-discrimination ordinance completely writes out churches and faith-based nonprofit 501c3s. It writes them out in terms of their clergy operations, their religious teachings. Where the gap is in this non-discrimination ordinance is in terms of churches' hiring practices. Say they need to hire a janitor or they need to hire a secretary that's not part of the clergy system, not part of their religious teachings. The churches and the nonprofit organizations, faith-based nonprofits, are worried that they'll be targeted, and rightly so. We have seen it in other places in the country where a militant activist gay group or a trans group, whatever, targets them and goes into this church and says, you have to hire me. Well, the church says, your lifestyle does not agree with our teachings. And I agree. There's a gap in this policy. When the first policy was brought, he asked me to explain my vote. When the first ordinance was brought forward, it was a terrible ordinance. It was an ordinance that was literally cut and paste from the city of Topeka. It had no enforcement protections whatsoever, or no enforcement arm whatsoever. And my feeling at that time was, if we're writing an ordinance, why are we writing an ordinance if there's no enforcement arm? The purpose of an ordinance is to provide a penalty, correct? If you break the law, if you break the ordinance, you have to pay a penalty. That's the purpose of an ordinance. So I originally said at the beginning, I voted no. I voted against it because there was no enforcement. It was a terrible ordinance. The mayor wanted to cram this through in 5 days. And I said, no, we have to take this to the people. No matter what we do, we should not be doing anything without engaging the people. Bad policy is bad policy. We represent the people, and if we're not engaging them and letting them chime in and tell us whether they believe the policy is right, I get it, not everyone's going to agree. There will always be some opponents. But I voted no against that first ordinance. And the Equality Kansas group brought forward a second ordinance after that, which I voted yes for. That ordinance included a enforcement arm for fines of up to $2,000 or cultural and diversity training. So at that point, the original ordinance contained, if someone was found guilty, if someone claimed that they had been discriminated against out on the street in terms of housing, employment, and public accommodations, They claimed that, well, number one, the person who is making the claim, which I am comfortable with, the person who is making the claim has to prove that they have been discriminated against. And I believe that will help solve frivolous cases, because if you don't have the proof that you've been discriminated against, your case is going to get thrown out by the judge. Ultimately, the second policy came to us and I voted yes for it. I do believe our city, and by the way, there are 20 different cities in the state of Kansas alone that currently have similar non-discrimination ordinances in effect that do include sexual orientation and gender identity. I do not believe the current ordinance that is before us infringes on religious freedom. The only way it infringes on religious freedom is in terms of hiring practices. And I fully plan to bring forward an amendment that writes out churches in their hiring practices and saying if churches and what's the word I'm looking for, faith-based 501c3s, nonprofit organizations do not have to hire. I will put in that. I will absolutely ask to I have to have 4 votes, but I will absolutely ask to have it rewritten in there that churches will be able to continue their hiring practices based on their religious tenets. At this point, almost done. I'll get to you, almost done. At this point, the ordinance is on a 90-day hold. It comes back before the council on October 12th. We will have a meeting. What's in the planning stage right now is a meeting with the Kansas Leadership Center to bring forward all the groups that are affected by this ordinance, the NAACP, the VFW, veterans groups, people who fight for rights for disabled people, and also people who fight for rights for homosexuals and transgendered people. Bring all of these people to the table and figure out how we can move forward and appease everybody and get this ordinance passed.
Okay.
So that's where we're at.
Next question here from our newest member, and then Jennifer, you're following that.
On the clap corridor.
Sure.
Now, I have heard a rumor that they were possibly going to turn it back into a golf course. Is that true?
Not that I know of. No, I've not heard. It's not going back to a golf course. It's been dormant for 2 years at this point in time. The only way it would go back to a golf course is if we sold it off and let a private developer do that.
So they are going to go
But
ahead
no.
with the plans or?
The park plans.
The park plans?
The master plan for the parks was
Because
finalized.
there hasn't really been any activity, because we live
Yeah.
right on,
Yeah.
we're at Mount Vernon and all of that.
Yeah.
And I have played that course.
Yeah, I grew
years.
up playing that course.
And so, and the only activity, I mean, they've been doing a really fantastic job keeping it groomed.
Mowing.
I mean, and mowing and all that stuff. They've done a fantastic job. And the other activity is the
Frisbee golf.
frisbee golf.
Yeah.
Right.
Disc golf. Yeah.
Disc golf.
Yeah.
So, but other than that, I haven't really been seeing anything.
It's not going back to a golf course. I can tell you that. It's not going back to a golf course. You'll start to see some activity next year, the first year of funding. Ultimately, the developer who came up with the master plan, developer is not the right word. What's the consultant? The consultant that came up with the master plan, their plans, if we fund this park plan, and it's a beautiful plan. I would encourage everybody to go to the city's website and download the master plan for Clap Park. If they claim funding everything in that plan from start to finish would cost anywhere between $25 and $29 million. We don't have that money. We don't have that kind of money. But on the other hand, if I am elected to this position and get a full 4-year term, I am absolutely going to be a champion to go knock on Charles Koch's door and knock on Chase Koch's door and say, we need some money. Can you help us out? Because quite frankly, Charles Koch carries around $10 million in his pocket every day, you know? So it must be nice. It must be nice. But in terms of, we have a ton of developers in this town that can help afford to chip in, and I will be a champion to bring in private dollars to help pay for this park.
At one time that there was going to be like apartments or something like that.
No.
And I know that is
No.
not a good idea.
No. There are some concerns about commercialization within the park. The park board is very much against allowing commercialization. We're going to have to allow some commercialization in the park, but a very limited amount. Like right now, the city just allowed a disc golf pro shop guy to go into the clubhouse and sell his disc golf stuff, but he's also providing programs to the Parks Department to keep people coming there and playing disc golf.
And there's been other activities
Yes,
there at the park.
yes.
I've
So,
seen that,
in terms of that, that's the kind of commercialization we're talking about. Nothing that's going to significantly change the park.
Jennifer, go ahead, and then Jason Dean.
Okay, I'm trying to understand what you were talking
Sure.
about. So I still have 7 kids in Wichita. We live in Derby, but we come to Wichita every day to go to school. I have 12 kids altogether, but the rest are grown. And so I have to understand, I want to just be clear. So you'll add an amendment, but if they don't take the amendment, will you vote against it?
Yes.
Okay, because I don't want to deal with that.
Yeah. I feel if the non-discrimination policy, non-discrimination ordinances infringes on churches, religious freedoms, and religious liberties, and faith-based nonprofit organizations, if I feel this ordinance infringes on their rights, I will absolutely vote against it.
Does that include the private schools? Like the Catholic schools that are running? That's what matters to me.
That's never been brought up, quite honestly. I don't think the Catholic schools are part of this. If they are, they're part of the Catholic
They're
Church.
certainly faith-based and
Yeah.
they're certainly 501c3.
Yeah, if they are a 501c3, they're written out of the policy to begin with. But I have a feeling they would be considered an arm of the church.
Most parishes run the church.
Yeah.
Run the school, I'm sorry.
Yeah, the Catholic diocese runs the schools, so they're written out of the policy.
Well, and the bishop asked us all to speak up about that.
Yeah.
And that's my kids are all in Catholic schools.
And quite frankly, there was a lot of misinformation. Not everyone's going to agree with me. I understand that. But that doesn't mean I'm not willing to work with people and figure out how we can move forward with a plan that hundreds of other cities across the country have figured out. Their Catholic churches are still operating just fine. There have been very few problems. A lot of people talk about Jake the Cake Baker in Colorado. He was a private business owner who dealt in wedding cakes. He was a baker, and he was targeted by a homosexual family who came in and ordered a cake for their gay wedding. He said, based on his religious convictions, his deeply held religious convictions, that he did not want to bake that cake because it was for a gay wedding. He didn't think it was right.
He has that right.
And he has that right now in the state of Kansas as well, because the state law provides for the Kansas Preservation of Freedom of Religion Act that provides business owners the right to deny business based on their deeply held religious convictions. That won't change.
But what if they have a business license with the city? Are you going to hold them accountable because they have some kind of connection to the city, even though they're a private business?
Well, this ordinance covers all businesses in the city. All businesses in the city. So I don't think a business license would change anything.
My impression was that the non-discrimination ordinance was only with entities that do business directly with the city.
No.
Okay.
No, this ordinance includes all businesses in the city.
So how do you exclude, how are you wording it so it does give that religious exemption or conscientious?
We don't have to, because the state law already provides for that. The Kansas Preservation of Freedom of Religion Act provides business owners the right.
Not included just for peace of mind for those businesses in the city, so they don't be concerned that it supersedes somehow the state. Why not? I mean, if it's not gonna change anything, ultimately, what's the harm in including that?
I'll bring it up.
I'll own and run a wedding venue. I don't, but I'm not in the city limits.
Sure.
But there are others that are.
So you're concerned?
Kathleen, right?
You're concerned that it would be.
But I'm probably the only one that doesn't do same-sex weddings, so it's probably irrelevant.
No, you're not.
But
No, you're not.
I don't know, but you know, it's just it could happen, and so.
I get it, and I fully defend your right to deny business to me because I am a gay man. I'm married to a man. Many people.
But I don't deny business. I only deny doing a certain ceremony.
Right, and I fully agree with your right to do that, and I will stand up for your right to do that, and I have while I've been in this seat. I don't agree with it, but you know, you don't agree with my lifestyle either, so I get that, but my lifestyle isn't a choice either. This is the way I am, and so yeah. But I will always defend your right to conduct your business, and I will never force you to perform a service that goes against your deeply held religious convictions. I won't.
Okay, lots of people want questions right now. Jason Dean, you're next. Then after Jason Dean comes James Kilpatrick, then Michelle, then Benny. So the next four right there. And then Cindy Koss.
Who are we going to?
So go ahead.
Yeah, so a lot of us in the room are concerned about expanding human rights for the unborn, the preborn. I know I mentioned this to you before, so you've been prepared now. My idea was, and I talked to Mark about this with this non-discrimination policy, is that we should include the preborn in some way, which is a radical transformation from what it is now. I realize that. It's also a compromise. I'm a gay man, and this bill, or this ordinance, I have mixed feelings about it because of religious, so that amendment's interesting to me, but that's gonna mess up my plan to do what I'd like to do with the ordinance, because then all of a sudden, Julie Burkhart's gonna think she's a religious organization with an exemption, and I'm gonna be all messed up. So, my question is, and I asked Becky Tuttle about this too, because how would we fit that in here? Well, women are providing housing. I know this is an odd concept for people, but I think it's totally true. A comedian, Margaret Cho, she's not a good person, I don't think, but she said about her abortion that the tenant was evicted.
She said what?
The tenant was evicted, and that's how she described her abortion. And that's a joke to her. And so I thought about that, but just took away the emotions for a minute. That is housing. Women provide housing for the unborn until they're born. That's what they do. This ordinance is supposed to protect housing, employment, public accommodations against those who discriminate against them. And it's not just, it could, and we know abortion. Mark just posted this last week, a baby that was of the wrong race was about to be aborted.
And we're still working that one, yes.
Still working that one.
Mother's still
discrimination, housing, preborn.
Absolutely.
Well, I would think that.
What can we do about that? Or how can you help us expand civil rights for the unborn?
I personally would say that there would have to be a legal description, a legal opinion that would back up, that would justify your description that a mother carrying a baby is housing. I don't think that would stand up in court whatsoever. I think absolutely there would be lawsuits involved, and it wouldn't stand up. There's no way. So if you want, as a gay man, if you want protections for marginalized groups, including yourself, it's never going to happen. It's That's the plain fact. It's never going to happen if you try to fight for something like that to put in there.
Well, the
It's
last
not going to
question
happen.
is gonna be mine, and that's gonna be on sanctuary city, so.
And there isn't a
let's
single,
visit this-
one last thing, there isn't a single non-discrimination ordinance in the entire country that I've been able to find that has those,
But we
that
could be
has
the
anything
first.
like that.
It would be the sanctuary city in Palm Beach that has, that is not common.
That's, I think, the direction we should go with it. Okay, so that was, number 2, I said was James Kilpatrick.
You said it, we got the regulations in Kansas, we got the federal laws. All this non-discrimination ordinance is gonna do is put an excessive financial burden on the city. Because if they really have a case, they can take it to Kansas or they can take it to the federal government. But what you're going to do, if you go ahead with this, is open up a bunch of frivolous lawsuits and meaningful expense to the city. And so I don't see any reason why we need to duplicate those laws. I mean, I don't mind you guys having your sexual preference. And if I disagree with it because of my religion, you have to live with it.
And by the way, it's not a preference. You don't prefer loving your wife over another man. I don't prefer.
Yeah, I do.
It's not a choice.
Me too.
It's not a choice.
I do too.
It is.
It is not a choice.
It's a sexual behavior. That's all it is.
I think
You're
what
trying to
he's
make it
saying-
into something that's
well,
not.
That's off subject, but aren't you trying to say that there's already laws that exist on the books federally
He
and
knows
state?
this because I've been
that-
before the commission.
Yeah, that cover the same issue.
Same nation.
I thought it was illegal to discriminate on housing based on.
Period.
Isn't it?
Period.
Alright.
It is.
Have we already
period.
said that like in 1960?
Right, I mean, it's.
Is that a problem?
So it shouldn't matter whether, if there's a same sex involved, the law states.
Why would you even ask that?
Listen,
Why
The
would
law
you
is
even-
already in
Stop.
existence.
Hold on. We invited Jared here for a discussion. Please don't ask questions unless I call on you.
Oh, sorry.
And then we'll direct the questions to Jared. He's doing a great job tonight.
Yes, he is.
So, anyway, so we are at the point where I think Michelle has the next, no, James.
Can I address his?
Yeah,
his
go ahead,
question
but
real
let's
quick?
keep
I'll try
the
to.
cross
In terms of the
down,
state
then
and
we'll
federal law,
keep
in
it
terms of the
between you.
current state and federal laws, you have to hire your own lawyer, which is very cost prohibitive. Let's say someone who is working at Burger King, a teenager or a young adult, low income. That's the only job they ever have. They're making minimum wage. If the cost of hiring a lawyer, if they have been legitimately wronged, and the cost of hiring their own lawyer, which is going to be $5,000 at the very least, if the cost of hiring their own representation in court is going to keep them, that's the facts of the matter. The cost of hiring your own lawyer keeps people who have been legitimately wronged from filing a claim in the first place, and that's wrong.
So you
This
want
ordinance,
to
this
use the
ordinance.
city money to do this.
No, they have to pay the costs are split 50-50 between the two parties.
So I have to pay because you complain.
Yes, but if you win the case, if you're found guilty, yes, you do have to pay for everything. If the claimant can't prove his case, he has to pay for your legal costs.
But in the meantime, the city's having to put all the other stuff, all the staff usage, the courts.
An arbitrator, yes, the policy does call for hiring an independent, non-biased mediator, arbitrator.
You gotta have it. You gotta have it.
You gotta have it. I mean, the city can't do it. Well, the city will be accused of being for one side or the other.
Taxes for people who are trying
I
to
do not absolutely believe that this will cause a tax
Well, I think
increase
it will.
in,
It's the only reason it exists.
to raise taxes.
No, to cause cost to people, which means the city is financing it, which means I have to pay the taxes.
But again, our ordinance requires the person who is making the claim to prove that they have been
The
wrong.
city still has to furnish staff, the courts.
Our judges we have 4 judges in-house every day, weekdays from 9 to 5, 8 to
And you're
5.
just sitting around drinking coffee?
No, no.
James,
I
I think you
understand
made,
what you're saying.
Yeah.
What I'm saying, this is unnecessary, and they came up with it just to make it expensive.
I would disagree with that. We heard over and over 3 weeks of people testifying of people who have been legitimately wrong. There were a few people up there, I believe, who told false stories. Absolutely. But we heard some cases up there where disabled people, trans people, gay people who just want to earn a living or live in a house, live in safe housing, have been discriminated against, and they can't afford to file a claim under the current state and federal regulations that we have because they can't afford it.
But I think the organizations that support it, just like they did the baker,
And he won, by the way.
He won the case
But he was
because he would have put a message on a cake, not because he wouldn't sell a cake. He would have put a message on the cake. Anyway.
okay, thank you, James. Your point has been well taken. Michelle, you're next.
And then me, Mark?
And then Betty,
All right.
and then Cindy, and then Jason. So we have lots of people, so keep your question concise, please.
I appreciate how honest you've been about your embracing your particular lifestyle with us. Will you please honestly answer this question? Do you support the drag queen reading time at the public libraries?
No.
And how can we stop that?
It's not going on that I know.
Will it happen again? Is there any danger of it ever happening again?
That I know of. I mean, I don't have a crystal ball, so
Is there a public program that supported this program being implemented in our public libraries?
that I know of.
Then how did it happen?
They reserved the time and they paid for the work. That's how it happened.
Okay, can we at least...
He's right. They reserved their time and they paid for their room. And I mean, there were no kids, there were no children that were forced. There were no children in the library. I'm sorry?
Except by their parents.
Yeah.
All right, can we at least enforce a dress code so that there's not a nasty sexual connotation being pushed on these children with these dudes in their G-strings spreading their legs right in front of these children at eye level?
I've never seen anything like that happen in our libraries.
I have.
Well, there's been stuff on the internet that's showing that.
I'm pretty sure that's against current dress code and policy.
Because that's the same lifestyle that is pushing your agendas. They support you.
Actually, no, they don't support me. They're not supporting me.
You're right.
Time is flying past, and I've got several more with questions, but Michelle, you have an important point.
I agree with you. I don't think any of those things need to be in our public places and our libraries at all. I agree with you. That's wrong.
Benny the Black Man.
I like to say, and I think this is going to really encourage you, but God let me feel, like Mark says, a black man. I love what you're doing. Me and Mark both, we love you. That's what I feel in my soul. And if Mark was alive, if Mike was alive from KFDI, to see the wonderful work that you want to do and what you're doing for the American people like me and Mark that live in the state of Kansas. I'm saying that to say this. What God is showing me, regardless of what people are saying in the room, you're on the right track. Stay on the right track. And we love you for that.
Thank
I'm
you.
ready to bite to eat before they close the joint down.
Thank you, Benny.
Yeah.
All
Stay
right,
encouraged,
so
my man.
Yes.
Cindy Koss, you're next.
Yeah.
Hey, you bring your food
I
back.
have a question about transit. The transit system.
Oh, yes.
Why are they removing bus stops and making it to where instead of like 3 blocks from one place to get to my kid's school, I have to walk a mile from the bus stop. They are 2 miles apart. And I was told it was because somebody decided that those stops weren't utilized. But all they do is drive past the stop.
Yeah.
There's really no reason to have removed them.
Can you tell me where? get with me afterwards and tell me where those stops are, and I will absolutely go to transit and find out what's going on.
Is there are so many bus stops that are like 20 feet from a tree. It's possible to just go tree
Yeah.
instead of sun.
Yeah, put it in the shade. Yeah, I get what you're saying. I get what you're saying.
Yeah, I would love to talk to you.
Okay.
Okay, Jason Carmichael.
So,
My former opponent, by the way.
in the NDO, about the housing, okay, on the federal level, it only applies to people with more than 3 rentals.
More than 3 what?
More than 3 rentals. That's probably a good
For the
thing too. Yeah.
non-discrimination at the federal level.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if I've got 3 rentals, what about the state? The state defers to the federal level.
Very
The
good.
state,
That's a really good point.
the Kansas Landlord-Tenant Act has nothing to do about discrimination. It's all about if you have a rental agreement or don't, and what applies. So, is the NDO going to apply to housing if you've got 1 rental or more than 3?
Yes. It will apply to all landlords.
There's a lot of people get into rentals. The easiest way possible is with a duplex. And it's ripe for discrimination.
Abuse.
Because they typically rent to their kin and
That's
exclude
it.
everybody else. But is it possible to have a discrimination against them for familial status?
Familial status, yeah.
You know, familial status at the federal level basically means you have kids or 55 and older and
Age.
But the main point of it is at the federal level, anybody that has a FHA backed loan, it applies to them.
Yes.
If they've got 4 or more than 3.
Right.
And that's the,
I think that would be a good addition, but Jared's the guy that has to think that. Who hasn't asked?
Point to discuss.
Okay. Thank you.
Who has not asked a question who would like? Pete, go ahead.
Yes, what can we do to save Century 2 and what is your position?
Thank you. It was on my list, so thank you.
I am
for doing
fully
that.
supportive of Century 2. I
Yeah, talk
personally
about that.
think we need to save Century 2 and the public library and the old library. I think our city would be considered a laughing stock in the country if we tore down those 2 beautiful buildings. A Frank Lloyd Wright inspired building like Century 2, and we tore it down. Are you kidding?
Yeah.
We'd be a laughing stock of the entire country if we did something like that.
Not only that, it would be a
Yes,
shame.
69, I think it was when it was built. Yeah. And so I believe, I am fully supportive of plans to revitalize downtown, but I am not supportive of tearing Century 2 down at all. I think we need to find a way to move forward with saving Century 2. And the Save Century 2 people, by the way, I have fully expressed my opinion to them. If there's any plan brought forward whatsoever that does not include saving Century 2, I think it needs to be taken to a public vote. I believe it will fail. I believe there will be shown overwhelming support for Century 2 if we do take it to a public vote, and I'll bind myself to that public vote.
I thought that one time they were going to do a public vote on it, and
Okay. Anybody who has not had a chance to ask a question, at least one. Not, then I'm going to give you one because we're running so short
Okay.
on time. My question is, Jared, we have 40 cities now in America. Most of them, about 30 of them, are in Texas that have gone through some court processes. It's been going on for about 3 years now. And the sanctuary city for the unborn is piggybacking on the sanctuary city for the immigrants. And it's a little bit of twisting and bending the legal system. It's not the perfect way to do something. But as a stopgap measure, I can't think of a city in America more ripe for sanctuary city status for the unborn than Wichita, Kansas.
Amen, Mark.
So I would like to know where you would stand on modeling after some of the larger cities that have already had some court cases that have, we know what's going to fly in court.
Is there
and what's
any
not.
city in the country that has done this?
Yes, Lubbock, Texas is a large one.
It's become a sanctuary city for the unborn?
Yes, you cannot have an abortion in that city, period. And of course.
How does that happen though? If abortion is by the state level, is
Yeah,
governed
I
by
know
the
you
state
get
law.
right into federal law. This is where the twisting comes,
Yeah.
because you've got federal law on immigration, and here the city says, no, in this city, we're not following federal law. We are a sanctuary city, and that's gonna be excluded. The boundaries of our city, if you wanna have your abortion, you go outside the city limits. And that has been upheld at the levels it has been. It has not been above the district level yet. However, immigration sanctuaries, cities have been all the way up to the point where the Supreme Court was begged to take the case, and in saying, no, we're not gonna take that case, means that, no, we like what the district level did, so we're going to leave it there, and we're not gonna touch that. So I can't think of a reason for us to wait any longer for sanctuary city status for the unborn of Wichita, Kansas, and I would like to know your inner feelings on that.
My inner feelings are I am not supportive of abortion. I do not agree with abortion. I am against abortion. I am pro-life myself. I believe abortion is wrong. And state law, unfortunately, I don't know. I did not know about Lubbock, Texas, to be honest with you. But state law governs abortion law in our state, and I don't know how a city level ordinance
override.
It can't.
But it does
cannot
on
override.
immigration. On immigration, it does. So it overrides the federal, and that's the whole point of sanctuary city status, is that you exclude yourself from, in a legal manner, you exclude yourself from the upper levels that would normally prevail.
Who enforces that, though?
The locals. It's enforced at the local level.
They enforce
by the district attorney?
No. I'm sorry, I'm taking your position.
That's all right. That's all right.
Okay.
I'm trying to figure out.
The sanctuary city status for immigration is always enforced if, for example, the city of Los Angeles, and they've had that now for probably 15 or 20 years. Okay, so the sanctuary status, it doesn't apply whatsoever in the state outside of that boundary of the city. Wherever that line is drawn, city property, not city property, the law either applies, inside that city boundary, just like you had a stone wall. And outside of that, it's, you're right back to state law. All of the enforcement, all of everything has to be done by that municipality.
Inside
that wall, and nothing applies outside.
Wouldn't it be the same like a dry county?
Sure, exactly, good point.
Liquor
Just
laws?
like the liquor laws in the southeastern part of the country. Gene, you didn't ask a question yet, and Ellen, I'm gonna have you next.
No, sir. On Jason D, is that correct? On his comments regarding housing for the unborn, I'd refer you to the opening of the Constitution where it says, "We the people of the United States, in order to form a more perfect union, establish justice, ensure domestic tranquility, provide for the common defense, promote the general welfare, and secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and our posterity." That would be is that a legal document? I believe that would include that. But also on what I believe to be the proper role of government, the second paragraph of the Declaration of Independence says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal, and that they are endowed by their Creator with unalienable rights, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, that to secure these rights, governments are instituted among men, deriving their just powers from the consent of the governed. That whenever any form of government becomes destructive of these ends, it is the right of the people to alter or abolish it, and to institute new government, laying its foundation on such principles and organizing its powers in such form as to them shall seem most likely to effect their safety and happiness. And I would submit that the proper role of government is not to try to pigeonhole citizens with ordinances and laws and enforcers to tell us what. Rather, our rights come from God, and the governments are at the consent of the government. Thank you.
So taking that literally then, in the literal form, should we get rid of our laws on crime, on rape and murder and...
No, they should be enforced.
Right. Well, as you mentioned, as the Constitution mentioned, all men are created equal, and I would say that all men and women are created equal. All of us are created equal, and that includes me as well, who I'm just trying to... I'm just trying to live my life and...
That's irrelevant, but my point is that the government is not instituted to tell the people what we should do. The government is the servant of the people. And
yes, you're correct. I agree with you. We are representative of the people. Absolutely, we represent the people. That's why
that's what's being challenged in the country. That the government is trying so hard to circumvent exactly what he has just said.
Right. In terms of being representative of the people, I pushed to put this on hold, this non-discrimination ordinance on hold, so I could take this to the people and engage them. I went to my district advisory board that's made up of 11 people, and they recommended passage of it. And there are many conservative people on my district advisory board too. So that's all
I was just making a point.
I get it.
The clock is running really fast here, and we could talk to you for another hour, Jed. Ellen Weldon, you're the last question. Go ahead.
Okay. I'm not an attorney, but I think as long as the voting's decision stands in the Kansas Supreme Court, you cannot have your sanctuary cities in Kansas.
Do you think after the amendment would pass that we would have a chance?
Yes, after the amendment passes, but whether the amendment passes or not, we won't know until next year.
Is it okay? Yeah, that's true. That's correct. So,
but the Kansas Supreme Court has spoken, and as long as that decision stands, you don't stand a chance of getting that sanctuary cities for the unborn.
I think that we get rid of them probably. Probably true. That's a good point. Did you, Jennifer? Did you have a question?
No, I wanted you to let her introduce herself to everyone.
Let her.
Oh, she came in late.
Yes, I wanted her
introduce. Okay, I'm sorry. Yes, please introduce yourself. We're honored to have you.
I'm running for school board in Clearwater.
Oh, well then I'm glad you mentioned that because I've got a spot for you, and somehow we have to make time. So we are going to call this discussion to an end. Let's give Jared a huge round of applause.
Thank you.
And then let's move right along to a closing statement. Do you think you need one, or if you can do without?
I'll make it really quick.
You make a good closing statement. Keep in mind, following that's item J. Item K is balloting to see if you're going to get the endorsement.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so you
well,
might well,
I would submit to. Is there anybody in this room that lives in District 3? Okay, Alan. Yes, thank you guys very much. That's right. You said Mount Vernon and Oliver. So, I would hope that and pray that you support me. I'm a lifelong Wichita resident. I care deeply. South Wichita resident. I care deeply about what happens to us. I think the South Side has been forgotten for the past 2 decades at City Hall. And I'm going to stand up and fight for what we deserve on the South Side for once. And nobody's been doing that for 20 years. So
thank you.
I'd appreciate your vote on November 3rd. Thank you.
All right, very good. we are gonna take a quick vote here.
November 2nd, by the way, not
if
November
you
3rd.
came,
It's November 2nd is voting day.
Right.
Yes, this is for the general. We are endorsing for the general. Obviously, the primary is behind us. If you came in and you had a date, regardless of what the date was on that sign-in sheet, even if you're not paid, at least now you know that you're expired or where you're at, you may vote. This is because of being shut down for 22 months, well, not a year and a half, 18 months. So you may vote, but we do have another candidate running. His name is Mike Holheisel, and Mike could not make it tonight. I don't think that he's a bad person. I talked to him. He seems to be very nice. He is an opponent of Jared, but he is not here tonight. So much of politics is showing up and being there. And since there's only one, we can do this by voice vote. We don't have to ballot, and that takes more time. So what I'd like to do now is entertain a motion. Deborah, are you going to make a motion to that the KRA endorses Jared Cerullo for the position of City Council District 3?
Okay.
Is that so moved?
That we endorse him?
Yeah, we're taking an endorsement vote, and you don't have to vote yes, but you have to.
We can take the vote.
We can take the vote.
Yes.
Okay, it has been moved by Deborah Evans that the KRA make a vote on the endorsement of, or take a vote on the endorsement of Jared Cerullo. Do I have a second for that? I see Cindy Koss back there first. Thank you, and by the way, you're a valid second too, so we have 2 seconds. But so it has been moved and seconded that we take a vote on this organization endorsing Jared Cerullo. You don't have to live in District 3 to vote here. So all those in favor of endorsing Jared Cerullo signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, same sign.
Aye.
Oh boy, need to see a show of hands. Division.
I want to make a motion as a paid member that we cease this discussion and move on to continue business.
I need a second for that Jason's motion, and so we are at a tie, and we cannot make an endorsement in this race. That's where we're at. You know, going once, going twice. If anybody else is going to join, I mean, we're going to have to. This is it. This is where we're at. Okay, going 3 times. That's it. We're not making an endorsement in this race.
If I can make a statement.
Yes, go ahead.
Does the Republican Assembly have the same
Robert's rules. We use Robert's rules.
Not that. The same platform as the state of Kansas?
As the state of Kansas Republican Party?
Yes.
No, we would be much more conservative than the state Republican Party.
So
We are
Article
the.
12 of the state of Kansas Republican Party says what family values are. One man and one woman make a family.
We're the conservative wing of the conservative
And if
party.
we're more conservative than that,
It says that on here as well.
okay.
If
And
you,
that's my objection to endorsing him, that's why.
Jason, there's a sheet. If you haven't gotten one of these, maybe James should have given you one that looks like this. Okay, that's what we live by, is right there. Now we have to really hurry because we've got 4 minutes left, and I have a very important vote with Representative Bill Riley. Bill, will you please stand?
Guilty.
Guilty. Bill is my appointment with your approval for being our replacement national committee man for Dean Friesen. Everybody loves him. He moved to Alabama. He's an aircraft engineer type. He had to move for his job, and he bought a home down there. In fact, he was doing this moving to other states and stuff for quite a while, but now he bought a home down there, and so he's joining the Republican Assembly in Alabama. I didn't put that in here. I should have put that somewhere, but we are lacking one of our national committeemen. I want Bill to replace him. I need an up or down, yes or no. This can be a voice vote. All in favor of Bill being our national committee man signify by saying yes.
Yes.
All opposed say no. Oh, I guess probably, Bill, you have to leave the room. Do we have any nays? Yeah, that's the $64 question. Who's willing to spend the money to go to these national conventions? You know, you're looking at $195 to $200 somewhere in there for the convention fee alone. Then you're looking at the hotel, then you're looking at the travel, and no, that doesn't come out of this checking account. So you got to pay your own way, but it'll be the most fun thing you ever do. And by the way, you all can go to the convention, and I hope you do. But when you get there, there are some votes that are only for the committee. And if you're on the national committee, then we take some votes for the National Federation of Republican Assemblies. Who are they? They're people just like us. All we are is a collection of state subchapters. And so when we go to these meetings, if any of you got my mailing yesterday, I told about how Donald Trump became president because of a vote of the National Committee at a presidential preference convention, and it was by 2 votes, just like tonight here, that close, that Ted Cruz was going to keep Trump from getting anywhere as close to being a candidate. And by 2 votes, myself and Sharon Ford of Tennessee. And those 2 votes, it was an unbelievable fight. And Trump knew that, and that's why I have my Facebook photo is with Donald Trump. Was what happened there. So these are important things. Obviously, you know, everybody sees what was going on here. So with that, I'm down to the announcements. By the way, Bill, stand up, and we're going to give you our hand. You're our new national committee. Moving quickly.
That I do support all the principles on
You do support all the principles here? I hope you do.
Yes.
I hope you.
And I have them on my website.
Thank you, right here, very good. Okay, so I did say in the, we're going to be running over, I don't know what they're going to do about it, but any school board candidate present gets 3 minutes. So do we have a school board candidate present here?
Yes.
Stand up and tell us who you are, and you're welcome to come up to the mic. Let me bring Jared back in. Okay, did we have our 3 minutes from our school board candidate?
Sorry, I thought we were waiting.
Huh? Okay, come on up. You got 3 minutes on overtime.
I'll be quick. I know everyone wants to get home and let
Yep.
their dogs back in or whatever. I'm Kathleen Harrison, and I ran for office last year for county commissioner, so I guess I didn't get enough torture. I'm running again for school board in Clearwater, which is where I'm from. All 8 of my kids went through school there. I got 2 left in high school. One's graduating this year, one's a freshman. And grandkids, we belong to St. Peter's Church, Catholic Church in Schulte. My kids went to St. Cecilia. I have a bachelor's in political science and a master's in international affairs. From Newman. But I guess the 3 main things that I'm concerned about, the reason I'm running, it's more of a kind of a protective measure, because we don't necessarily have a problem in Clearwater yet, but I see things coming down the train track, as a lot of us do. So my concerns are, we don't want any masks forced on our kids again. I don't want to go back, I want in-school teaching, I don't want to go back to remote learning. And I absolutely, positively do not want any enforced vaccinations on our children. And it's a very personal thing to me, because I was a contractor for the government and I left my job because of it. Because I refuse to be tested every 3 days for having a healthy body and being suspect because I'm not sick yet. So I feel like this is all a horrible Marxist indoctrination all the way down the line. I could just go on and on about all of the atrocities that they're doing to every one of us. And in one way or another, we are all affected, and more directly some than others, but we are all affected. And I don't want, I'll fight tooth and nail for the kids. And I've already told my kids, they show up on the property, you see their little tents showing up. I don't know if that'll ever happen in Clearwater, Kansas, but you have my permission to get your cell phone, your book bag, and head out the door.
you don't even stop up at the office, because you ain't going back.
Do you have any experience with kids?
Yes, I do. And I have 5 grandkids and another one on the way. We'll find out tomorrow what it's gonna be. But anyways, I don't know, I just care a lot. I just want to make a difference. I want to use common sense. Imagine that. If somebody wants something done and changed, then they better have good explanation and evidence to back it up. It's not emotions, it's not because you feel it's right. It's you better show me the evidence, because they're there to teach them and not change their, indoctrinate them into a new social experiment. I mean, we got enough of that going on. We don't need it in the schools. The kids, that needs to be a safe zone where they feel like they can be free to think, to ask questions, and to learn the basics.
Kids
of
should be
life.
allowed to be kids, and that's not it.
Yep. So.
Thank you so much for running. Thank you so much. We are at item N. If you want to join the KRA, you know how to do it. I don't need to talk any more about that. I think we covered that during the vote. Wichita Pachyderm Club, I used to be president of that organization. I'm one of the founding members of it. The Wichita Pachyderm Club meets on Fridays at noon on the 9th floor of the Ruffin Building, which used to be called Bank of America.
You said 11:30, Mark.
11:30, sir.
Oh, yeah, 11:30 to get there. I'm the one who always gets there after.
That's right.
So 11:30. I'll correct that on there. Anyway, tomorrow, Robert Lawton, really a real talented person, somebody who earns his keep in the city of Wichita. He's our city manager, and he is our guest tomorrow. If you come to the Pachyderm for the first time, I buy your meal, it's $12, you're on me. Then after that, come on in, Cindy. After that, if you join the club and you want to come back in, you're supposed to be a member to come to the club. There's some people that have been coming for years and never joined, and they get away with it. But you're supposed to be a member or a guest of someone, and but you're my guest the first time, and then after that, if you want to join, fine. I've signed up more members for the Pachyderm Club than anyone else in Wichita. Quite proud of that. So if you'd like to join the Pachyderm, we would like you there tomorrow at 11:30.
The city manager gonna be there tomorrow?
The city manager, Robert
he's
Lawton,
good.
tomorrow.
I like working with him.
He's
good.
a good guy. So the last item on here is our next meeting is September 23rd, and that is right here in this room. And this will focus on USD 259 school board candidates and their elections. So at that point, I will entertain a motion to adjourn. Do I have somebody saying so moved? Alan Weldon has moved. And tell me your name again, sir.
AJ.
AJ has seconded the motion. All in favor of adjourning this meeting signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, same sign. We are adjourned.